This time.
Ayo.
I was not nice to people.
Cheta, you have to move on, please. Thank you.
Oh, wow.
You're live already.
So you are the business item.
This is
You are the business item.
breakfast.
No.
Well, here's some hot gist for you.
Oh,
Check
no,
out
no.
the absolutely
Pen was
amazing
the-
welcome back offer from
Oh, it's
MTN.
okay. Yeah.
If you have not
Apple
used
was
your SIM for 45 days or more for whatever reason, whether you lost it or you just stopped using it, or maybe you even broke, whatever, just get back on MTN by recharging and get 2,000% on your first recharge of every month. And if you've lost your SIM, no wahala. Just visit any MTN center, retrieve your line, recharge, and 2,000% is yours. And that means if you load 100 naira, you get 2,000 naira. Load 200 naira and get 4,000 naira. And then if you load 500 naira, you get 10,000 naira. Isn't that incredible? Well, don't waste time now. Get back on MTN right now and know what it truly feels like to be welcomed back. Remember, terms and conditions apply.
Hey, what's up? This is Diverting. Stay tuned, stay locked right here on Smooth 98.1.
Bank action hard, and we agree. With a Diamond Yellow account, all you have to do is dial *710# to start banking, even without the hash. Hey, banking
This
at
was
your
yesterday.
convenience
Bad day at
and
my
without
house.
hassle.
My
This
kids are
feature
supposed
is
to
available
screen
to
on
all
their
mobile
tablets and they're
It's
pulling long
banking
faces
made
for me.
simple.
I'm
For
trying my
inquiries
best to
and
ignore them,
support,
but they're
please
my
call
best friends.
0700
Children are
300
both best friends.
or on MTN.
The Smooth Breakfast presents the headlines, the stories, the news.
Join us on YouTube. Please type in the search box Smooth FM at Smooth 91 FM Lagos. That's Smooth 91 FM Lagos.
Yes, indeed. And don't forget, of course, you can tweet at us, use the hashtag FreshlyPress981 and send in messages to us via our WhatsApp number, which we will tweet to you right now.
First, we'll take the story from Guardian. Nigeria takes delivery of 12 Tucano warplanes in 2020. Now, these fighter jets, as it said, takes a while to prepare, and it's only really completed manufacturing when the full payment has been made. Now, the 12 Tucano warplanes that are meant to be delivered to Nigeria, but from the United States in 2020, cost between $400 million and $500 million. Ayo.
Okay, so Nigeria tried to procure this 2013 from Brazil, and then it was halted by the US due to the 1997 LAE law. And of course, we tried again, and then it was halted again. Now, the US wants control for some reasons, best known to them, because the plane itself is actually manufactured by Brazilians. Of course. American technology, that's what I was going to say. So yes, that's what they use, and whenever they have the technology, they get to tell to good developers that's we're going to we do actually new technology.
We have quite a bit. We have quite alpha jets. We have some Donier.
Yeah.
It's not about the problem. I've been buying them from Brazil. The Americans, without appropriation by the National Assembly, those things are going to raise a stink.
And that's part of it.
Yeah. Now, for me, the key issue here is not even that. Is the Americans have the excuse that you don't just pick them off the shelf. But I think the excuse flies in the face of given that this thing has been in the works for at least 5 years.
It's an excuse.
Yeah.
It still is. ThisDay newspaper has this headline: Wamakko denies diverting 15 billion naira. Now, this is the senator representing Sokoto North Senatorial District and chairman of the Northern Senators Forum, Senator Ali Wamakko. Yesterday, he said he's never had 1 billion naira in his account in his life. He took us back to when he was earning 54 naira salary as a teacher. It was when I was reading the story, I felt for the man. He said he was outside the country when these allegations came in. he gave, paid respect to the EFCC, saying that they're a reputable, institution of the government, and then saying that, those who meddled the story in the news and the media are detractors, are people who do not wish him well.
I'm not exonerating him in any way, but I think due to the fact that we want to get corrupt people as much as possible, especially those in the APC, we need to be very careful, because what happens now is by trying to find corrupt people make allegations that might not be true. Now, if the story said that, I mean, they said he had 1.5 billion in his account.
That was found in his account.
That let them bring proof of it, and I wouldn't be surprised that we wouldn't find any form of proof, even in the social media, in the court of public opinion. We need to be very careful. I'm not trying to exonerate him in any way, but
what might be the intention of those who spread the story?
It's we get into politics. It's politics.
If you want to, politics, and then looking at it on the level of us ordinary human beings now.
I'm tired of all these denials. See, people are spreading gist. Their publications.
But what's the reason?
With physical address.
Beyond politics.
Besides the points. There are publications with physical addresses that carry the story. Sue one of them for libel.
Thank you very much for that, Cheta. Thank you. Because that is exactly what needs to happen. Because we have falsehoods be spread in papers all the time.
I won't say they're falsehoods. Something is alleged. You come out and say it's a falsehood, and then you leave it at that. Sue somebody. Let them pay the money. Let it serve so that every other person will check.
But how long would you get your verdict?
It doesn't matter, even if it's 28 years time. So far, somebody gets in 28 years time 15 billion damages against him plus legal costs. Then after that,
it actually depends on also who is suing. I mean, if for instance someone that actually has maybe like 15,000 in his account is the one that
but that doesn't really matter.
The worst cases I will go to jail.
Fine.
But,
so then
because Ayo, what we're looking at here is establishing a precedent of people correcting bad behavior. If you're going to go out and say something on the pages of newspapers, then you need to be relatively certain that what you are saying is correct. If it is not correct, the person whose reputation you are damaging has the right to do that, and they really should see this all the way through.
But what if these allegations are in the social media where
irrelevant?
There are some people on social media that can be found.
Of course.
I mean, it's not every. Yes, there
in
are some
fact,
accounts that.
Cheta, it's a good thing you said that. On Saturday, some guy made some allegation on Twitter. You know how people just brashly say something on Twitter. The guy said it about a governor in the state. Okay, you're going to call his name, so you did. Anyway, so El Rufai came out and he said he was going to sue the guy.
But remember that
the guy is a journalist in Kaduna Kefasen. He can be found. Let El Rufai sue him. Let this thing go to the logical conclusion. If Kefasen is guilty of libel, let him pay through his nose or go to prison in lieu of payment. So, and then let this thing just. I'm just tired of our big men saying, "Oh, I think you be thief and no be thief." About the time I was born.
Remember during the hearing of Facebook CEO, okay, and then he specifically said that, of course, talking about the election of the US, that over 240 accounts were fake. Now they were Russians. Now I'm not saying that that's exactly what's happening here in Nigeria, but it's possible. So you might just think about it. I agree with the fact that somebody should be found guilty for all this perpetration of this, but I feel like sometimes these guys feel what's the use of chasing after trying to kill a
but it's the defamation of character. He's in the public eye, so people really need to be careful what they say. Moving on now to Vanguard, we have this one coming in. It says Senate reps can seat for plenary in absence of mace. Now, the human rights activist who come out to say this is Mr. Femi Falana's son. Yesterday, he said it was not mandatory for either of the two chambers of the National Assembly to have a mace before sitting for plenary. He cited instances with a mace that was abducted. I use abducted. It was taken away from the House of Assembly the other time by thugs, and he said it wasn't necessary for the members to scamper around or just decide not to sit because of this. That a law should be passed to better protect the mace. Cheta, what's your take on this?
Falana is right. At the end of the day, the mace is what it is. It is a symbol of the authority of the house. That's it. It is not the authority in the house. But you see, for people who claim to be Christians and Muslims, we are so much into idolatry that The moment and that is what Obanege and his people knew, that the moment they took it, there will be confusion everywhere. This is not the first time that maces are disappearing in Nigerian history. I mean, there was a time that the Chuba Kazibo had a mace disappeared, and they had to send in army units to his house to retrieve it.
Even as far back 1956. So
no, not 56, 64 here. Okay. When Awo was trying to get Akintola get rid of Akintola, and the mace was disappeared. The person who stood it was Mr. Ebubedike, who was the member of parliament at the Western Parliament representing Badagry. It's ridiculous, because that particular incident degenerated so much that the Western House of Parliament scattered, as in there was kata everywhere, and then we had Operation Wet there as a result, and it culminated in a coup, all for a simple. I mean, it's ridiculous. Falana is right, and the only person who seems to get it that day was Shehu Sani, because as they were all in confusion, they say, "My guy pulling belts." And saying, let's use this as a base. I think that's what it is. It is just a symbol. It is not the authority itself.
But it represents it.
It's symbolic.
Yeah, exactly. So we need to start learning these things. This is symbolic.
Like
this is real. We have this habit.
It's symbol of authority, but like Falana said, I mean, it's not legal. There's no form of legality.
Very See, it's just this simple.
Yeah.
Let us start, because it keys into our psychology and across the gamut in so many things. We tend to chase after shadows rather than chasing after substance. End of story.
Thank you very much for that, Cheta. Messages coming through. This one is in on WhatsApp from Yinka asking, are we still on the Tucano planes fraud? Why is it fraudulent, Yinka? Yinka goes on saying, I still maintain we do not need those planes. As for the people pushing the federal government to go ahead with it, they're not seeing beyond their noses all these years now. The same way we slipped into the refinery issues we have today. Those jets are low-range fighter jets that will be useless after Boko Haram has been defeated. Moreover, it is not as if we know a pinpoint location of Boko Haram and we can drop bombs on. So basically, those jets are useless. Yinka, I have to disagree with you.
Totally
and the reason, even Cheta, when you talk about jets that we have of fighter capabilities, we had a military man here earlier this year who spoke very clearly on the issue and spoke about the importance of this, and they're retired. But we'll move on. I can't answer that specifically. I'm just talking about what we had, people who were in command of the military and of the Air Force at the time, at least when the Chibok girls were taken. So I'm using that specifically, and luckily we can pull these up from the archives. So I will just rely on their expertise for the moment. Livy from Festac says, so without mace, meetings can still go on. I'm just hearing it now. Well, there you go. At least you've heard it. Let's move on.
Moving on now to New Telegraph, where we have this headline: Adeosun Emefiele explaining why we were absent at the United States confab. On the New Telegraph, we have this story: Finance Minister Mrs. Kemi Adeosun and the Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, they are reacting on the premises of the statements released by the Emir of Kano, accusing them of disregarding very important investment meetings or summits that they were called for in the United States while they were there. In a reaction, the Finance Minister said that she was attending the International Monetary and Finance Committee meeting. At the IMF's FC meeting, she was attending, or she was on the capacity of being a governor in that stead, highest decision-making body of the IMF, where she represents 23 African countries. The CBN governor, on the other hand, said he was not consulted when the summit was being organized, first of all, and then defending the finance minister, said the summits or the African International Monetary and Finance Committee meeting took precedence over the investment meeting that they were called for. Cheta.
Well, both explanations make some sense, and I'm tempted to take it at face value. But what this thing reveals to me is that there's a serious dent in the internal communications process, and Emefiele's statement shows it. That the Nigerian embassy was putting together this thing, or was invited for this thing, and all of them were there. As in a huge, that was one of the reasons why FEC could not take place last week. Almost the entire cabinet was in Washington, and then a summit for investment in Nigeria, a country that ostensibly is looking for investors, was held, and none of them could be bothered to turn up. The Emir of Kano was well within his rights to scream loudly. And when you consider the antecedents of the Emir of Kano, this is no less a personality than the chairman board of directors of Black Rhino, a unit of Blackstone, one of the biggest investment private equity firms on planet Earth. When somebody like that is complaining, you basically keep your mouth, come out. For him to have come out to basically scream, you can imagine what has been said in the background by huge personalities and something like, man, guy, your people are serious.
But in defense, the finance minister says that she was attending the IMF meeting instead, where she reps 23 countries, and she wasn't due at the other event.
I started with the explanations make sense, but it shows a lack of coordination internally.
Yeah, but
because what they could have done, is make their excuses and send representatives. Did you see Sanusi's statement?
So
they were just not there.
That's exactly what I thought. They would have sent somebody in. Anyway, we'll move on from that. Thanks, Cheta.
All right. Yeah, we do have to move on. We've got more stories to talk about, and there's a lot of business news actually to get involved in. Just before we do, let me see if I can get a couple of messages. God of War 1759 tweets at us. He says, talking about Wamakko, he doesn't have 1 billion naira in his account. Okay, you should tell us how much he has. Is it 1 billion cowries or is it $1 billion? The guy says there's no 1 billion, but he says, as Cheta says, sue if false. That's up on Twitter. While up on WhatsApp, we have even more messages coming through. This one is in from Big T. He says, wow, so a bunch of elders cannot sit down and discuss national issues because somebody stole Paco. For goodness sake, is only wood, says Big T. Thank you very much. And this is in from Yomi from Vestac, who says, if you employ a manager for your into issues there. Let's move on. SEC moves to halt the delisting of quoted companies. Now, the Securities and Exchange Commission on Sunday says it has initiated moves to halt that development and encourage listings by more multinational companies in the country. Coming to you for this one, it seems as though SEC is trying to understand a number of these companies are delisting and why certain eligible ones are not listed, and that should be concerning for all of us, shouldn't it?
Well, the major reason is for majority shareholding. And also some of them also try to lower the free float.
Okay.
Now,
and what does that
the
mean?
major to have the major they want to have control of the companies most of the time. Now, the only disadvantage to any company is having access to free financing from the public. Now, it's a welcome development from SEC. The only thing about this, from what I'm saying here, I mean, they said they gathered, they have a list of, they are asking CSC to obtain a list of companies not yet quoted. So I think there's a drive to have as many companies as possible quoted in the, it's okay by SEC as far as I'm concerned. But I think every company should have the right to choose if they want to be quoted or not.
Very interesting. Well, SEC are definitely quite concerned about the development, so we'll keep an eye on that one as it continues. But we move on now into more news on the business front. Cheta, I guess this is following up from what we'd seen earlier. Divergent outlooks failed the 633 billion naira credit surge to the private sector, and we've taken this particular story from the Vanguard newspaper, which says there have been divergent outlooks for the overall growth in the credit sector to the sector in 2018. Some analysts are urging caution, with some projecting up to 10% growth in the flow of credit to the private sector. Others saying that this growth may not be as significant as expected. Cheta, what is your take on this story?
Well, first is reading the entire story. Declining yield is good news.
Okay.
It shows that the risk appetite is slowly growing. But the interest rates are still way too high.
They're punishing.
And unfortunately, country risk will go on the up as elections take center stage. I would like to seize on two comments that were made in the story. The first one by Razia Khan,
Managing Director, Chief Economist, Africa and Middle East. Chartered.
Yeah, she said that the economic recovery is still weak. This flies in the face of what a lot of people would rather have us believe, and the available data actually points to the fact that the economic recovery is still weak, which means that any shock and we go back to where we were. But the more important comment is from Ambode Yusuf, the Director General, Lagos Chamber of Commerce, and he said, I'm quoting verbatim, first of all, we need to know what sectors these credits are moving to. that is when you can determine what kind of value they can bring into the economy. He has just said it. It's basically what I keep saying. The devil is in the detail. You don't just tell me, oh, the economy is recovering or credit is. What sectors are they going? If everything is going right back into the oil sector, we are still making the same mistakes. He continues to say, from what we know, the situations with credits for key sectors that can actually create the kind of job we're talking about, credit is still a major challenge because of cost interest rates for these sectors, which is still mainly either SMEs, mining, agriculture, real estate, is still what's over 25%. For SMEs, it is above 30% or about 30%. If we have such a situation, we can't celebrate the fact that there's increase in credit to the private sector. I don't need to say anything. He has said everything that needs to be said. Basically, if you are still, you can't be celebrating credit when SMEs are taking loans at 30%. It makes no sense.
It really is quite tough out in these streets, and lots of people are still sending in messages. We will get to your messages in just a bit. Let's quickly roll on to the next headline. A center trains 2,000 vigilantes and tasks them on insurgency. This is from the Guardian newspaper. Now, in conjunction or being sponsored by the United Nations Development Program, we're told that the Citizenship and Leadership Training Center in Jos has trained about 2,000 members of the Civilian Joint Task Force drawn from different states in the Northeast, saying that they should see themselves as potential victims of insurgency and as such must contain the menace by ensuring peace. Cheta, over to you.
Questions. There are a lot of questions that need to be asked. On the surface, this looks like they're being proactive. There's a need to put many security forces, blah blah blah. But in reality, you'll have to ask questions. As in, how long are we going to keep applying plaster to a wound that's full of pus? Because that's what this is. We have vigilante. The vigilante system has. Is that a badge on your t-shirt?
Yes, it is. I'm feeling like a bad man general today. Continue.
The vigilante system.
Moving on.
The vigilante system has become entrenched in the Nigerian psyche. And do we have laws backing these vigilantes? What do we have? And is this not a way of actually admitting that we need community policing? If this, instead of doing all these basically illegalities, why don't we actually legalize community policing and make it something that communities can come together to finance?
No,
because there's nothing that prevents these guys from, when they don't have anything to do, from taking out these guns and turning them on the very people that they are meant to protect.
Very important thing we're talking about, Cheta, especially because we're looking at the one phase of it. I mean, they do talk about several phases of this helping out the Civilian Joint Task Force, is what we're calling it, right? And they talk about a second phase, which is supposed to be helping them acquire skills, technical, and that's all well and good. But as you said, looking at this vigilante problem, essentially, the people who should be doing something to enshrine it or doing something to push for community policing are Senate. I mean, they vetoed the last bill that we had, which was talking about restructuring. At the end of last year, no one seems to be talking about that. These are the people who are responsible for this.
The restructuring debate, let's be honest, was a buzzword in response to two things: the recession, when it was clear that money was not there, and then now the Tucano. The moment those two things went out of the table, we've gone back to default mode, and we're just basically.
And this is the problem, is what I'm pointing out. So why are people not holding our lawmakers responsible for this?
Let me just go back to the vigilante issue and restructuring. I'm sure you're talking about coming back to
community policing.
Exactly.
It's simply saying
now
let the state have responsibility for what's going on.
Exactly. Now, here's the thing. We had a culture in Nigeria. We have a culture actually of our community policing through the vigilantes. We've had it in Lagos for a very long time.
Yes.
Now, I think it only makes sense to have some form of institution for this. It's okay to be trained, but like you said, it has to be passed into law so that they have some form of act that says that okay, they were enacted on this particular day, and then they can make arrests. I mean, not like police arrest, but they can make maybe.
They should have the power. We should have police arrest power, and we should also fund the police.
Yeah, we should fund the police.
Mark my words. One day we are, and sometime in the future, we are going to call the army in to disarm these guys.
I know. No, I don't know about that. But hold on, it's about control. Say 80% already of the police are already with the VIP. So we need to find a way of getting ourselves secured. Now, if this vigilante issue has always been there, I mean, growing up, most of us already know about it. Like I said, let's make some form of laws to empower them. Now, we also have to be able to control, like you said, saying that we're going to probably call the army to disarm them. We have to find some form of control. For instance, the police every day, they get back to their stations, they have to submit their weapons. Are the vigilantes going to be able to submit their weapons every time they are going off duty and on duty? So those are the things we have to do. I totally agree with you.
Lawmakers, where are you? That's the question. But Ayo, thank you very much.
The lawmakers will tell you that the last one that they passed, Peace Corps, that Buhari refused to sign. I support Buhari on that, by the way, but...
Comments in on YouTube. That's youtube.com/smooth981FM Lagos. Olori Africa sending a comment. Hi, Olori Africa. If you listen to what some of the Nigerian judges say, you would understand that the FCC is a joke and false allegations is 99% of what we see in newspapers. Up on Twitter, Vlad Pela says, Tucano jets, when will the Nigerian government and military wake up? Those jets are archaic. What about Rafale jets and F-Series?
Where's the money?
Yeah. Hello says, Kemi and Emperor are useless and their failure to attend that summit is because they could not hold their own in front of his investors. This is what
in motion 2003 is not exactly archaic.
No,
for Nigeria has a
lifespan of 30 years. All you have to do is
upgrade it to the model.
See, the bottom line is this: this procurement, have we done proper scope analysis?
We've been on it since 2013. I think they should have.
We actually have done
if not for the
I'm
lay
trying to
law.
also purchase also from the Israel and
yeah,
so this has been going on for a very long time, Cheta.
We should have simply gone to Russia.
You remember the Chinook helicopters also 2013? I mean,
we should have gone to Russia.
Next
so we have to be careful. You know why we have to be very careful with that. You know why we have to be careful.
For time reasons, we've got to move on. Lagos State government unveils a Gani Fawehinmi 34-foot new statue as Ambode vows to nurture his ideals. Is this what we really need at this point? Here, I'm just going to ask you that.
I'm a great fan of Gani Fawehinmi.
Yes.
I'm very happy about the statue, but I think the statue. Okay.
Is it necessary? Are we happy about the statue?
I am.
Why?
I'm sorry. I just want to see Gani Fawehinmi immortalized.
They could have painted
Have you
him.
seen the
Painted
statue?
it's actually very ugly. So to say.
No,
sorry.
The
face is so funny.
The cover of that statue should be whipped.
The face of the statue, you mean?
The face.
The statue itself.
No, the statue looks like how the statue should look.
Okay. All right.
But
from an artistic point of view, though,
the face doesn't look exactly like Gani and it looks really ugly. But I'm always going to be for any way of immortalizing that man. He was a very great man.
All right. Really, thank you very much for that. We're pretty much done. We've got messages coming in. Henry Manuel says, I hope the organizers of the investment summit are satisfied with their scattergun approach. Even Yewande Sadiku, the CEO of the Investment Promotion Council, claimed not to have been informed. Some people at the embassy wanted to show that they are working. I hope they are satisfied with the outcomes. Wuru everywhere, he says. And then Yinka says, no one is saying the jets are old. Actually, again, please pay attention. Someone tweeted at us to say the jets were archaic, so yes. And we've got Big E. No, we've got I think we're kind of done with the message.
Yes, we are.
We're done.
Thank you so much,
Thank
guys.
you, everyone. We appreciate you.
You can find Ayo on Twitter, Esho1 at Esho1, and Cheta is up on Twitter at Checkstar. That's CHXTA, right?
And we've got a final message up on our YouTube Live. Shout out to everyone on YouTube Live. Emmanuel Kago, sorry if I said your first name wrong, I apologize, but Kago says, this vigilante thing is a slippery slope. We don't have anything to learn from history, and I think people in government just don't want to do their job.
Get your PVCs, guys.
Yeah.
Get your PVC. Coming up next at 8:15, we'll talk sports inside of the locker room. Keep it here and listen to Folu and I.
The stories. The news.
Yinka, somebody said arcade. Don't say we're not saying it's not.
Like I said, pay attention.
Because sometimes it's like it's a bit like, I don't know.
I just didn't want to say, have you off that
No.
scene?